Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Monday of week 5. We are getting started with unit 5 today, and we will be continuing what we started last week in working on pieces and elements that will eventually become part of your argument essay, which is due in week 7. So let me go ahead and take a look at what's happening this week with you so that you are on track. All right, so as usual, first we will go through the unit itself. We are continuing to learn about argumentative writing, and this week we're getting really into the background on what is persuasion, how to build an argument, including, how to open it, the introduction, what are the elements of argument, how do we use pieces of research to support the position that we take in an argument. We're also going to talk about facts and opinions this week. And this is a very tricky one, I think, for a lot of people, because we tend to think that facts are good and opinions are bad. But in reality, we can't just use facts in writing. It's literally impossible. When we are constructing the argument essay, for example, we're going to be relying on certainly some facts, but also on the opinions of experts in the subject matter, which is why we focus so much on good research. The reality is there are always at least two sides to any argumentative topic. And both sides believe they're right. So it can't just be fact-based. It has to involve opinion. Being able to back up and prove your opinion, not only with facts, but also with expert opinion, is how we persuade the reader of our argument. And in reality, there are some topics that you're never going to convince the quote unquote other side, excuse me, to agree with you. But constructing a good argument is something that is possible, and we use good research to back that up. So we are going to be thinking about facts and opinions, but I want you to think about it not in terms of facts are good and opinions are bad. And I'm going to give you some additional resources this week for that as well. In our readings and resources, we have a section on persuasive writing. We have a section including an activity on fact, opinion, and bias. The other thing is, I just talked about fact and opinion. The word bias gets a really bad rap as well. You cannot avoid bias. If something was written by a human being, it's going to have bias to it. And so we've got to learn how to manage it. One of the main ways that we manage this swirl between fact and opinion and bias when we're doing our research is to make sure that we are doing research on all of the potential viewpoints, and that we are not ignoring the good points that people have on the quote unquote other side. Now, we're in a place right now in politics where that doesn't happen. So it's really difficult to remember how important that stuff is. So really, as you're reading and doing the activities this week, think about this not as something that you see in our current political situation, but how in our normal lives, we use information that we gather to help us form our opinions and paths of action. And try not to think of it as this side is evil and this side is good, because that's not super helpful. You are going to be writing an introductory paragraph for your argument essay. And so here on the last piece here is a sample introduction about cyberbullying. Now note, cyberbullying is not one of the possible topics. So this is truly just an example of what could you do in an introduction. And it has an opening question, or close to the opening, and it has a thesis statement. Notice that the final sentence is the thesis. High schools need to implement specific programs surrounding the topic of cyberbullying that provide education on the subject, intervention for those being bullied or doing the bullying, and severe consequences for acts of cyberbullying. That is the thesis. Your papers will also have a clear thesis like that, that will state your position on the arguable issue and name the reasons why you think. Now, each of those then becomes a paragraph or 2 or 3 paragraphs in the body of your essay, which we will be working on next week and completing the week after. So that's your readings and resources. Make sure that, as usual, you go through everything here before you start tackling the assignments. All right. So let's go and look at the 2 assignments. First, of course, is the discussion board. And this is the one about fact versus opinion. You're going to be answering 2 main questions, and you're going to be including 2 statements. This is really important. A lot of people miss that. In your initial post, consider the following questions. What would you consider to be the biggest difference between a fact and an opinion? How would you use fact in your writing? And how would you use opinion in your writing? Because you do have to use both. Why do you think that people get confused about the difference between a fact and an opinion? And then after that paragraph, that should be a fully developed paragraph. So we're talking about 7 or more sentences. Then you're going to have, below the paragraph, you're going to have 2 statements. Name them statement 1 and statement 2. One statement should be a fact and one should be an opinion. And don't tell us, of course, which one is which, because then in your responses to each other, you're going to talk about that. Which one is the fact? Which one is the opinion? And there's a couple other things to think about in those responses. How do you know? You can also consider, of course, the use of facts and opinions in society today. How often do you think people use facts and opinions in their day-to-day lives? That's what you'll talk about with each other. One of the things that people often are tempted to do is to state a fact and then to state something that's just flat out false. That's not what the opinion should be about. An opinion is something that's going to be either proven or disproven, but a wrong statement of fact is not an opinion. So, for example, if my statement 1 said the sky is blue and statement 2 said sky is green, statement 2 is not an opinion. It's just an incorrect fact. It's just wrong. So an opinion is, I love blue. Blue is a beautiful color. Blue is the prettiest color in all of nature. That's an opinion, not the sky is green. Okay. So keep that in mind. That's a trap that a lot of folks fall into with this one. And then, of course, excuse me, as I mentioned, you're going to be writing your introduction for the argument essay. You will notice in this link, there are 2 documents. This first one is the argument essay assignment itself. So this is the assignment sheet for what you're going to turn in Unit 7. You should go ahead and read it this week. I also, and I've said this before, but I really, 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 really encourage you to print these assignment sheets out, because it's going to give you a place to kind of use them as a checkoff. Sometimes if we read it online and then we go over and do it, when we come back, we don't reread this and we realize after we get our grades that we've missed something. So I'm not going to read this one to you because this is not due until week 7. So I want you to read it this week, but I'm not going to point it out because I don't want to get you confused. This Unit 5 assignment is what's due this exact week. So over the next couple of units, you will work on the argument essay. We actually started it last week. Your full essay is going to be on one of the questions that you've already seen. Should cell phones be banned in the classroom? Should there be a pay gap in sports based on gender? And should childhood obesity be addressed in American children? So you've already written about your issue. You probably picked a side last week, but this week this is gonna be my position. So you're gonna pick a side that will focus your essay, and you're gonna write the introduction. So begin the introduction with a sentence that hooks the reader from the start of your essay. Using something like a question or a statistic can be really helpful there. If it's a statistic that you looked up, you have to cite it, as we've been working on. You want to engage the readers with that first sentence to make them keep reading. Your next sentences will briefly explain your essay topics. What you don't want to do in the introduction, though, is just talk about everything that's coming up in the body. You want that to be in the single sentence at the end. So one of the things that you might consider doing as part of your intro is talking about the quote unquote other side. Maybe you can see some good points that they make. That's a good way into this introduction. So there's the requirements, instructions, create an argument essay, introduction that is the start of your essay to answer one of the above questions. This is one and only chances. Now you're going to revise it based on my feedback on it, but this is one of those times when you turn this in to post, you are also able to include it in your argument essay in week 7. So that will not be counted against you if there's a lot of similarities. So I know some of you have had struggles with that self-plagiarism idea. This is not one of those situations. This is part of the writing process for creating the argument essay. As usual, needs to be in a document. It needs to be in APA style. If you use any quotes or statistics that you've looked up, you will also have a references page. You don't have to have a references page, but if you have used research, even in this intro, you must have one. You must also have the in-text citation with that information. So your introduction, it's only one paragraph. It needs to be at least 7 sentences long, and you're going to use those APA formatting things that we've been using all along. Use objective third-person language. Do not say, I believe that pay gaps are bad. I believe that da-da-da. It's your paper. We know it's your paper. So do not use the first person. This is our real academic essay. And of course, take some time to polish it. So you'll have a cover page and a paragraph in double spacing on the second page for sure, possibly a reference page if needed. The rubric, of course, as usual, is provided. So this is one of the main reasons why I say it's important to have these printed out. This will allow you, before you turn it in, to go through and say, did I do this? Did I do this? Did I do this? And you should be targeting the exemplary. Now, if you score in the proficient category, you've done a good job. It's just not wah, but you should aim for what it says over there in the exemplaries. Okay. So those are your assignments this week. You've got a discussion board. Your response is due on Wednesday as usual. You have until next Sunday night to do the 2 or more required responses to others. Don't forget about those. A lot of people are leaving points on the table by not doing those, or at least not doing them thoroughly. So let's earn those points this week. If you need any help, don't forget Tuesdays from 7 to 7:30. I'm actually live in that Teams chat where in the course, let me remind you where it is. In the course over here on the far left, this English 110 drop-in hours, there's more than just me. So you can use those drop-in hours anytime. In fact, let's look at the schedule so you can see how many there are. You want this set, the English 110, but notice there's somebody online every day of the week that can help you. You also can use the tutoring appointment below to meet with a specialist. So if you can't meet with me on Tuesday, there's definitely additional help available. In the left-hand column, you have Academic Writer and the Tutor Me system. So you can do this. I promise you can. If you have questions about the assignments, feel free to use the Ask the Instructor discussion board. If you have questions about your personal performance on an assignment after you've gotten a grade, do not post that on the Ask the Instructor. Send me an email. The other thing I would point out to you is that if you haven't seen it, there is an announcement from last week about the importance of checking email. So take a look at that. Some of you have not embraced the fact that you have an email when you are in college, and it is so important to use it. So reach out by email if you have questions about a grade. Ask the instructor board if you have questions about the assignment. All right. So welcome to week 5. You've got this. I will see you again in week 6. But in the meantime, let me know if you've got questions. Take care, everybody.